Hey guys, what's going on? Mr. Tommaso here. I just wanted to reach out and give you guys a quick video to just give you an update and an understanding, a little bit better of an understanding of the Gilded Age, what exactly we're talking about in this unit, where we are, and also to give you the context of what we're actually talking about, what your assignments are all about. So first of all, the most important thing is that the Gilded Age is not an event. The Gilded Age is an era that lasts for about 30 years, from about 1870 to 1900, just before World War I. So part of this Gilded Age, the Gilded Age is essentially defined by a time of economic prosperity in America. But a lot of things go into the Gilded Age and a lot of things happen during this time. So this time period of the Gilded Age, this 30-year time period, is defined by economic prosperity happening within America. And that economic prosperity is brought on by an event. That event is the Second Industrial Revolution. And the Second Industrial Revolution happens and occurs because of a series of really technological advancements that happen within factories, but also a series of advancements in physics and chemistry as well. So the most important, invention that happens during this time is the electric generator. So this electric generator allows factories to be built away from rivers. Factories used to be built by rivers because the factories used the power from running water produced by rivers to essentially power the whole factory. But now we see that with this electric generator, rivers are no longer needed to power factories. So factories are built in essentially what are modern day cities. So you would have a factory come up and then you'd have cities be built around it. And the workers that would work in the factories were the individuals who lived in the cities. So there's a huge population increase in these urban areas of Chicago, New York, Boston, Philadelphia. All these areas experience serious population growth. And that's because a lot of immigrants are coming into the country to take these jobs, looking for an opportunity to prosper in the workforce, and also looking and seeking for civil liberties that America promised within its Constitution. So you also have a series of migrants, so individuals who went from one place to another within America, and that would be African Americans who left the South seeking jobs and equal opportunity in the North. And they would also make up the population of these cities. So within the Gilded Age, the first and most important thing that we have to talk about is this Second Industrial Revolution. This is why America becomes so prosperous. This is why the economy is stimulated so much, because we have much more factories and industry is booming. We're making more goods because of these new technological and scientific advancements, specifically the electric generator, which allowed factories to stay open later and more to be produced. So you have this time of economic prosperity essentially happening in America because of this Second Industrial Revolution. You also now have immigrants coming into the country, producing and making all of these goods that made America so prosperous. Also, what you have happening now within the factories is the mistreatment of the individuals working in the factories. Horrible working conditions, being paid super little amount, like pennies a day. They're working about 70 hours a week. That's 10 hours a day for 7 days a week, sometimes 12 hours a day. Individuals were hurt. Some people lost limbs. Individuals were killed on the job on a regular basis during this time, and the workers essentially had no protection. They couldn't really do anything about it, and it was what it was until labor unions formed, which is happening during essentially the middle to end of the Gilded Age era, and will focus a lot more time on the unions that were formed to protect workers in our next unit that we'll go over, called the Progressive Era. And that era we'll go over probably within a week and a half to 2 weeks from now. So to continue with the Gilded Age, we have the Second Industrial Revolution happening, which allows immigrants to come into this country to make all kinds of goods and to stimulate our economy because we're making and producing a lot of goods. So You also have the mistreatment of these workers within factories, child labor, children as young as 6 years old working in factories. If you went down south, the majority of the workers would either be women or children during this time, especially in textile mills, who would be working in factories. So another part of the Gilded Age era, another event that happens, is the building of the Continental Railroad. So the building of the Continental Railroad was essentially to connect the East Coast and the West Coast so that they could trade more with one another, so that the goods that were found on the West Coast would be able to be bought and sold on the East Coast and vice versa. It also gave America the ability to settle the land out west. We do now essentially own the majority of modern day America during this time. We own the majority of the West Coast, including California, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Texas, Colorado, and all of these areas out west were won in that Spanish-American War or the Mexican-American War. And we also have the land that we purchased from the Louisiana Purchase during this time as well. However, this land is not really settled. You do see a population increase in California and the West Coast during the gold rush of 1848. However, you don't really see a significant increase in the Western Plains as far as population. If you remember, it's very unsafe to travel out west. If you remember when we talked about the Dahmer Party, and many people during this time would actually take ferries to go past the tip of South America and go all the way around, taking months of boat travel to get to the West Coast. So instead of doing that, they build the Continental Railroad. This allows us to increase trade and increase the settlement of that Western land. So with the building of the Continental Railroad, you have the American government funding the Union Pacific Railroad and the Pacific Railroad Company to build this railroad. And this is one of the first times that the government essentially stimulates a project for the betterment of America. So they give the Union Pacific Railroad and the Pacific Railroad Company hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in grants and bonds to build the Continental Railroad, and the government essentially funded this building so that America could have this railroad running through the heart of it to connect the East and West Coast. So what this did was, again, it allowed Americans to settle the Western land a lot quicker and a lot safer. Now, a con to this is that it also aggravated a lot of Native Americans. Not only was America building this railroad on Native American-owned land, but it was also breaking treaties. This land was previously given to Native Americans by the American government because Americans were beginning to settle land out west, so they would create treaties. Hey, if you leave this land and give us this land, we'll promise you land in this area out west, and we won't touch it. But lo and behold, years go by and Americans touch it. They break those treaties to build the Continental Railroad that they made with Native Americans, and this leads to the Indian Wars. This essentially lasts from 1854 to the 1900s, and it is a series of wars that happened between Native Americans and Americans over these treaties that were being broken and over Americans settling in Western territories that were previously owned and occupied by Native Americans. So a lot of these, you do have battles where you have a military meeting another American military meeting a Native American military out in the plains on a battlefield. And a great example of that would be Custer's Last Stand. But you also have these series of massacres that happen, and a great example of these massacres, one of them would be the Wounded Knee Massacre, which is what we discussed in previous classes, which was where 150 to 300 Native Americans were killed during essentially an invasion of a Native American village where they're trying to disarm the Native Americans. Native Americans wouldn't give up their weapons, and it led to a massacre of innocent Native Americans. Now you have a series of these massacres that happen throughout this time period, and eventually it leads to the genocide of the Native American population. And genocide would essentially be almost like an extinction of an ethnic people group. By the way, Morton wants to say hi. I know there's a little bit serious of a time and feel like we might need a dog break. But nonetheless, you do have these Indian wars, and essentially the Native American population, it made up 100% of these American lands. And now in modern days, you have essentially 3% of the population claiming to have Native American roots or background. So it is a serious time where the Native American peoples are essentially wiped off this continent through a series of massacres and wars that happened during this Gilded Age from 1854 to 1900. So that would be another aspect of the Gilded Age. You have the Industrial Revolution and a population growth due to immigrants coming into the country, and you also will have the Continental Railroad being built, factories being built, and factory workers being subjected to harsh conditions. You'll also have the Native American Wars or the Indian Wars that will happen during this time period. Now, the next part that we're going to be discussing during the Gilded Age is essentially the causation of all this. What happens? The effect of all this? What's the effect of this economic growth in America? How will that affect American economics? It must now be drastically different because we have much more money coming into the country. We're much more industrialized than what we once were. And it's also going to have to affect our government and how our government handles itself and how our government essentially works. This time of economic prosperity changes not just American lives or immigrants' lives or Native American lives, but it'll also change the way that America does business. It changes the way that the American government works, and it changes the way that American economics work. So that's what our focus is going to be on this week. We're going to look at how this serious change that the Gilded Age brought in America, how that serious economic growth and prosperity will impact the American economy and the American government. So I hope this is encouragement for you guys. I hope this helps you so that you understand exactly what we're talking about, the context of what we're talking about, and hopefully it will give you a little bit better understanding on the assignments that we have going forward. Please note that in the description of this video, I'll be giving you guys a note outline. So I'll just give you a simple, maybe 5 to 10 step thought process of what exactly this lecture or this talk is given to you guys, so that maybe you could just use it in your notes going forward in the future as well. So I hope this is an encouragement. I hope this helps you guys. Please reach out if you need anything. I can't wait to meet you guys in another Zoom meeting, so please be on the lookout for that. We had a pretty low attendance on the last one, so just make sure that you guys are attending those Zoom meetings to ask any questions that you have and to get a little bit more clarity on what we're talking about. All right, guys, take care. I hope you enjoy your day. Great job on the memes so far. I'm really looking forward to creating a PowerPoint that has all the memes from all 5 of my classes so that you guys can enjoy that as well later on tonight. So be on the lookout for that. And hey, may the 4th be with you. Take care.